Hey, what's up guys? Jay here and welcome back to another video. Guys, I'm excited because tier 2 weapons and armor are dropping soon to Throne and Liberty. And so I just wanted to walk through, my thought process of what weapons that I think I'll be going for as a bow wand healer. So I really hope this helps you guys out. And basically I just figured it would be kind of fun to, do some theory crafting and walking through my thought process as I'm thinking of, hey, which bow and which wand I'm going to be going for. And so I really hope this helps you guys out, but I'd love to know what you guys think is going to be the best bow that we end up going for, and also what is the best wand too. So I hope that this helps you guys out. Again, we're not going to 100% know what is the best, what's the best gear until it actually drops, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to go through this. So let's start right away with the longbow, guys. As I'm going through this, we'll just start from the top. I think we have about 7 different bows that we're going to check out, and I'll kind of briefly go through them. Essentially what I'm looking at, either, any type of weapon, whether it be the bow or the wand, the first thing I look at is the passive, and then I go into the stats, and then I look at the traits. So literally I go top to bottom from the actual icon to see, is this a weapon that's actually worth it for me? And so essentially when I'm looking at this, right, I look at, okay, does do my spells and abilities synergize well with the passive? Do my teammates impact that? Do I help my teammates with the passive? Those are things that I personally look at. And that's why I think that the Arc of the Lunar Radiance is actually the best longbow for us as healers. And here's why. So the passive says attack speed increases 6% per friendly target within Nature's Blessing area, and the effect duration is 6 seconds. So essentially, we get an increased attack speed, which it says, per friendly target. So I'm assuming it could go up to 30% if that's 5 other teammates within that area. And the Nature's Blessing, has an area effect. So basically, if you're able to use your Nature's Blessing on your teammates, then that means this will proc as well. And so I think that this is pretty good. I don't think it's broken, but I think it's pretty good because essentially what attack speed does is it helps us get our spells out there that require a charge time a little bit quicker. So for example, Clay Salvation will hit a little bit faster, Flash Wave will go a little bit faster, and things like that. And so I think that this is just good for us as healers. It helps us just get our spells out quicker just in case, someone's taking too much damage. Looking at the stats for this, perception, strength, I just love that it gives that, right? So essentially perception gives us that hit chance, also the buff duration too eventually, and 11 is just crazy once you hit it to, level 12. And then also the strength gives us that survivability. So I think that this is just really good. And then finally, it has the range plus 14%, which is just so good for us as healers because we're able to hit our spells out to people a lot quicker. And so I think for me personally, I'm just going to be going for this one. Yeah, as you can see in the traits, we get max health, hit chance, heavy attack, crit chance, all that good stuff. So I think overall, this is just going to be a really good upgrade from our previous longbows in tier 1. Moving into the next one though, the Bracant Iron String Bow. So essentially this gives us, if you look at the passive here, it just says on critical hit with its decisive sniping or decisive bombardment, cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds, and it goes through all that, right? So the reason why I don't think this is going to be good for me personally is because I don't use decisive sniping. Decisive bombardment, I think that this is a KR thing, I'm not really sure what that one is. But essentially, I know I'm not using it. so I'm assuming that this one's not going to be very good. Maybe it's just a translation thing. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can help me out with that. But I just know I'm not going to be using these. And so I don't think, because I'm not using this passive, I don't think that this bow is going to be effective overall. Yes, it gives us 12 dexterity and 8 strength, which is pretty good if you're trying to build more critical hit chance, and then also gives us a little bit more range than the Arc of the Lunar Radiance, the previous bow. But I just don't think that, it's completely, it's going to be as good as the previous one because of all those things. But if you guys disagree, feel free to let me know. And so, yeah, I'll be doing that as we go through here. The Black Anvil Wing Bow, I think this is just one of those where it says Soul and bonus increase 50 mastery XP bonus increase 50%. So basically for this, right, this is going to be a good farming bow. I don't think this is, this is definitely not viable in PvP, because basically, you're not going to be, hopefully you're not going to be farming mastery and Solent on players, but you never know, right? So guys, I would just use this one specifically for farming. If you're trying to get your mastery up, if you're trying to get more Solent, this would be a good longbow to go for, but it's not going to be the one that I'm going to be worried about as like my primary longbow. Next one is the Deadeye bow, guys. So this one's pretty cool too. Again, it doesn't show that it has a passive, but it gives a lot of that critical hit chance and bind chance as well, plus the dexterity 12 there. So if you're looking for, kind of a crit build, or you're trying to bind people, this would be a pretty good bow for you. But I don't think it's very good for healers, because again, it just gives dexterity, whereas some of the other bows give strength, perception, or dexterity perception, or dexterity strength, so all that. So I would recommend not going for this one as a healer, because it seems like it's more dedicated for those damage dealers. Next is the Frostbow. Now this is an interesting one. So I think that this one could be a little bit more viable for healers. I don't know if this is the Arc Boss, but I think it's an Arc Boss bow. I'm sure it's not. I really don't know. I forget. But it says Arrow Vortex deals 120% of base damage, yada yada, has an 80% chance to apply collision, push send target airborne for 3 seconds. This effect is transferred to another target within the 5-meter radius area once, and then it deals damage up to 6 times. So this, this is the skill that we have before we turn it into a tornado. And so basically it's like a pseudo tornado is the way I see this. And so, basically if you have this bow, it'll do a little bit more damage, and then also, send them airborne like it says. So this could be good. But me personally, I'm going to be running tornado anyways. And I'm looking at now the next criteria for what I think a good bow for us is, and that's the stats that it gives. And it just, again, gives dexterity 12, bind chance, sure, could be good if you're using that. And then it also gives a lot of range, 20% range there. But again, it only gives dexterity 12. So I just don't think it's going to be the best one for us as healers. But it could be interesting if you guys are using more of like a collision build, collision support build. So me personally, I'm not going to be going for it, but it's an interesting discussion. And then we have 2 more bows over here, guys. So we have the Leviathan's Bloodwind bow. And so again, I look at the passive. Zephyr's Knock shoots an additional projectile, applying damage, and yada, gives more damage. Great. So essentially for this, right, the passive itself, I just don't think is very good for me personally, because I don't use Zephyr's Knock in my pure healing build. If you're using it, maybe in a PvE situation or something like that, it could be good. But because I don't use it in PvP, I'm not too worried about that passive right away. And then, looking at the stats, it gives dexterity again, which is great. Critical hit, which could be good if you're building crit. And then cooldown speed is awesome, right? So I think cooldown speed in general is, it's really good for us as healers, but I don't think it justifies getting this bow over the Arc of the Lunar Radiance, because we only get dexterity. Cooldown speed, again, it's good, but I don't think it's better than getting both strength and perception in that one. So definitely something you guys should consider. Maybe it would be a good PvE one, if you're trying to run high tier trials to get cooldown speed and dexterity. But for me personally, I'm just not going to be going for that one either. And then finally, the Titan Spine bow. So guys, this is an interesting one too. Again, it creates an area of 3-meter radius around Brutal Arrow. And so it does more damage, right? And so with this one, again, I just don't use Brutal Arrow in my builds unless it's like a PvE thing and I'm trying to farm mobs and things like that. Yes, we get dexterity and critical hit plus the cooldown speed, but from a PvP situation, perspective, I just don't think it's worth farming for this one or trying to go for it. So ultimately, guys, what I think the best bow for tier 2 for us as healers is the Arc of the Lunar Radiance. Again, I'll just showcase it one more time. We have that the passive, I think, is pretty solid. It procs based on how many teammates are close to us. Perception, strength, plus the range. I think it's really just a solid bow overall, because it gives us those high stats, which is awesome. And so now let's move right over into the wand, guys. So we have several wands to look at, actually a lot. So we'll try to go through these, not quickly, but I'll try to give my best take on them. And again, guys, this is me, just my initial thoughts on these. So this could change as we get into the gear, or as we move forward into tier 2. So first, Black Anvil, Dark Hand. Again, this is more just like a farming wand because it gives us that 50% mastery and 50% Solent bonus. And again, it doesn't stack with other Anvil weapon effects. So say if you have, the bow version of this and the wand, they won't stack. You'll just get a flat 50%. So again, I don't think that's viable for PvP. If you're farming, yeah, that could be pretty good. All right, so now going into the Codex of Deep Secrets. Again, I'm looking at the passive first, then the stats, and then the traits. And so it says Corrupted Magic Circle changes to a skill that covers around the user, increasing damage by 25%. So that, could be interesting if you're kind of going more of like a DPS route. I personally don't use Corrupted Magic Circle in general, and it just increases damage. So, I mean, does it increase damage? It says it covers 5 meters around the user, increasing damage by 25%. I would assume people in your area can also benefit from that because it says covers 5 meters around the user. So I'm assuming that teammates could get that damage increase, but it doesn't explicitly say, so I don't really know if that's true. I would assume just because why would it say a 5 meter radius if it didn't impact teammates? So this could be a pretty good one if you're, trying to give your teammates a little bit more damage. I think this would be great for PvE right away because we get that like increased damage. You could couple that with the Blessed Berry that turns into the one that gives more damage, and then also Janus's Rage too with Clay Salvation. So you can make some really cool damage type builds, damage increasing builds. But for me personally, I think there's better wands out there based on the passive alone. And again, you look at the stats, Wisdom 14, Max Mana 1200, and Sleep Chance. Those are all awesome for us because more wisdom, more mana, the more we can heal, more efficiently we can heal. Sleep Chance is good if you're going for those sleep bombs. Me personally, I don't really go for sleep in large scale PvP. And so for me, I'm just not going to go for this one. I really like that in the traits, you can get mana cost efficiency, which is awesome. You can get max health, heavy attack, crit, hit chance, mana cost efficiency. So that's pretty cool. But me personally, this isn't the one that I'm going to be going for. Next, Deckman's Phantom Demon Wand. So again, I look at the passive Ray of Disaster. For me, guys, right when I see Ray of Disaster damage increases, I literally just don't care about it anymore. Because I never use Ray of Disaster unless I'm doing PvE farming. Yes, we get 12 wisdom, weaken chance, sure, and then cooldown speed is awesome too. But for me personally, I just don't use, I'm not going to utilize that passive. And so that's why I'm not going to really go for it. I know they're updating Ray of Disaster to be a little bit more powerful. But again, as a pure healer, I'm not going to be concerned with that. And again, this is all my personal opinion. 12 wisdom's great. Cooldown speed is awesome. But because the passive doesn't really synergize with anything I'm going to be rolling with, that's why I'm not going to go for it. Next is the Forbidden Demonic Eye, guys. So this one doesn't have a passive, but it gives us a Wisdom 11, Max Mana 1500, and then Sleep Chance is pretty good as well. So for me, again, I'm just not going to go for this one. This looks more like a Sleep Bomber type wand. So like an SNS wand guy who's going in, or even like a Dagger wand guy. This could be pretty useful because you get that Sleep Chance. Plus, the trait also gives you Sleep Chance. So this for me as a healer just doesn't seem that viable because it's investing too much into sleep, which again, I just don't personally run. And so then we have a couple more left. So this is the Arc Boss one, guys, the Giant Cordy Spore Hand. And honestly, I think that this is going to be the best wand as a bow wand healer for several reasons. One, just look at the passive it gives. Becomes immune to Bind, Petrification, Silence, Sleep, Stun for 2 seconds when you cast Absolute Barrier. So to me, that looks like Invincible Wall, and the effect is boosted by 50%. So essentially, I believe Absolute Barrier is invincible wall, just based off of the picture that it has there. So really, if you use invincible wall, I mean, you're going to become immune to all that. Like, that's insane in PvP, especially with all the stuns and everything that happens and sleeps and everything like that. So I think that in itself is just awesome. And if you can, do the wide, or if you can do targets expanded with that, I'm wondering if everyone else is also immune for those 2 seconds too. So I think like that in itself just makes this wand awesome. But then check out the wisdom and perception it gives and the cooldown speed. I mean, you can't get any better than that, in my opinion, for wands. Now, there is one other wand that I'm going to get into that I think is a good alternative for the Arc Boss, because obviously we're not all going to be able to get this. But if you can get this, like 100% do it, in my opinion, based off of the stats. Because then you look at the traits, you get max health, mana cost efficiency, hit chance, heavy attack, critical hit chance, all that great stuff. And so this is going to be probably the best wand for us, guys. Moving into the Gray Eye Wand. So this is another interesting one because it just gives max health and some melee defense, according to this, right? So I'm wondering if this is just something that we'll be able to, just pick up from random mobs, or what's going on with that, or maybe the website hasn't fully updated with it. But that's kind of what it seems like. This one's doesn't really have much going for it. So yeah, we're not going to talk about that too much. Moving into, I'm not even going to try to say this, King Kanzaisen's Valor Song. Wow, that was horrible. So the Valor Song, basically, this one is interesting too, because it says for the passive, absolute barrier damage is minus 5%, and incoming healing is increased by 10%. So then that's an interesting one. So basically, again, I think absolute barrier is the invincible wall for us. And so basically, like, if you have that on you or your teammate, I would assume, then they will take reduced damage on top of the barrier that they already have, and they get healed better. So this is an interesting one. And if you look at the stats, we get wisdom 10, weaken chance, sure, but then the mana cost efficiency is insane. It's 16.2%. And so I think, guys, that this is a viable one. I don't think it's the best alternative to the Arc Boss, but it's definitely viable if you were able to get this, because we just, anything that can help our healing out or our mitigation, our mana cost efficiency, like, that's going to be good. So I think I would recommend, not spending everything into this, but if this is the only wand that you have from tier 2, I think it's a pretty good alternative to the Arc Boss. Moving into the Overture, I think this is the last one. Yep, the Overture of Eternal Salvation. So this one, guys, this is the one that I was thinking would be a decent replacement for the Arc Boss. You could go with the previous one, the King one, but this one I think is a little bit better in terms of getting our stat spread. And so first, looking at the passive, Invigorating Salvation, on hit with Clay Salvation or Janus's Rage, heals additional 50% of health per second for 6 seconds. So basically, does that mean that it's giving a heal over time? I would assume, right? It says heals an additional 50% of health per second for 6 seconds. So I would assume that's kind of like a heal over time. I could be wrong in that. So if you guys, again, I think it's like a translation thing. So we won't really know until this comes out. But then, which I think that's overall pretty solid because it just increases our healing. And then we get perception, strength, weaken chance. Again, that's okay. But I think the perception and strength make this a pretty solid wand. And to be honest, guys, this is going to be the wand that I personally go for. Now, we get max health, all that great stuff, hit chance, there's sleep chance in there, crit, heavy attack chance, attack speed even too. So realistically, basically, I like this one a lot because it gives us perception and strength. And if you're trying to hit, those 70 threshold for strength or like 40, 50 perception, I think that this is a really solid one. Again, if we're looking at the King Valor Song one, this is really solid too, because we're able to capitalize on that passive plus wisdom and the mana cost efficiency. But I think that the Overture one is just going to be a little bit better. And I think this is the one that I'm personally going to go for because it gives us all that stats spread. And I think the passive is pretty acceptable. You know, it's not amazing, but I think it's pretty good overall. But yeah, guys, so that is pretty much it for this video. I really hope this helped you guys out. So again, just to recap a little bit, I think that the Arc of the Lunar Radiance is going to be the best bow for us. And then for the wand, I really think that if you can get the Arc boss, that's definitely going to be the move. But again, if you can't do that, because I mean, look at that, like it's just insane. Like everything is really good about that Arc boss one. So that's going to be worth a pretty penny. But then if you can't get that, I personally would recommend going for the Overture of Eternal Salvation, because we just get so much strength and perception, which is just really cool to see. Oh yeah, this isn't there. Okay, I should have maxed that out. So sorry about that, guys. But yeah, so 11 perception, 11 strength, 14 range. You get that attack speed from the passive, which is great. And then here you get 10 perception, 11 strength, and then the passive is really solid too. So, and then if you look at it right away, guys, just from the two weapons, I mean, you're already pushing 30s in strength and perception, which, as you guys know, for PvP, that's really big for us. And we're able to, get a lot of stats just off of these two weapons. So yeah, guys, I really hope that helped you out. I'm going to be making a video on what I think the best sets are too, so stay tuned for that. And again, thanks so much for the support on the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.